All right. Does anyone need to listen to any of the music or brush up or need a break?
No, I just got to go put on my baggy pants, style my hair really weird and bleach it, and maybe put on some like eyeliner, and then I'm going to start hacking.
Right. I need to like close all the shades. Maybe get a couple more monitors in here.
Hold on. I'm almost in. I'm almost in.
Rapidly types on keyboard.
Rapid type sounds. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 86 of Rhythm Encounter, the RPG Fan Music Podcast. I'm Hilary Andreff. I'm hosting today, and I've got a group here. We've all been very excited about this episode because it's music from the future. We're going to be discussing some futuristic songs from RPGs, and we'll go into a little bit more about what exactly does that mean? What sorts of context do we see? But futuristic music from RPGs. And joining me today are my co-hosts, Audra.
Hello.
And Mario.
Hey, what up?
And Greg.
Coming at you from the past.
It's true.
Hello.
We're doing our own form of time travel because we're recording this before everyone listens to it. So we're being futuristic ourselves. How is everyone today?
I'm good.
Generally well.
Yeah.
Good.
Excited for some futuristic music.
Glad to hear it. I mean, this is something that comes up a surprising amount in RPGs. So, from the very first Final Fantasy.
Yeah, and I feel like future can mean a lot of different things, so...
Mm-hmm.
That was probably, the biggest part about trying to choose all this, which, we'll get into, I'm sure, but, and it's also realizing I haven't played near as many future games as I thought, or, games that are, all future, so to speak, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was kind of tricky. Are we going to limit ourselves to games that are mostly sci-fi, kind of technological, or anything set in the future, even if it is a little bit more, maybe even, post-apocalyptic or more nature-oriented?
Theoretically, one of us could have picked Gerudo Valley, because it is Link's future, technically.
Ooh.
But
I hadn't thought of it like that, but true.
right? It's weird. It's all relative.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you could also think of it in terms of the music itself, right? Certain musical cues, and I'm sure we'll get into this, certain musical choices and cues kind of indicate to the listener, hey, this is supposed to sound futuristic.
Yeah.
So you could have chosen that way as well.
Because I remember, I was really excited at first for this one, and I thought I knew exactly what I was going to go get, and then it became a lot harder for me because I was like, oh, finally, we'll get some Knights of the Old Republic on this. And I went and was listening to stuff, and I heard some really good, Dantooine's a great track, but everything on there is it's very Star Wars. But Star Wars doesn't necessarily say sci-fi. It says Star Wars.
It depends what you are.
Science fantasy more.
And it's science fiction fantasy, exactly. And then if people want to get all well, actually, it happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Well, then sure, there's that. But it just didn't say sci-fi to me. It just said Star Wars, which it is or isn't, but it's just not quite, it wasn't quite on brand, so to speak.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's a hard one to think of.
Yeah, some of my first thoughts were .hack and Star Ocean.
Oh, yeah, those would be great.
Yeah, but then I kind of had a similar thing with .hack, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, okay, this does seem pretty futuristic, but is that mostly because it takes place within a computer game? I know there's kind of some futuristic technology, but how future is this? Is this future enough?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It's all, again, is it relative to the characters in the game, relative to our current time period? Is it the Sonic soundscape? Is it that I just wanted to get Mega Man Legends in there just for Mike's sake, but I didn't actually, I've never played it, so I didn't feel weird. I don't know, it wasn't right to pick it because I haven't really listened to it in context, but.
Fun fact, I actually just bought him the Mega Man Legends 2 vinyl because we found a copy of it out in the wild, and I was like, no, we're not leaving without this. Yeah.
That is pretty awesome.
I just, someone was selling a whole, finding random good finds in the wild, was selling a whole bunch of vinyls, and one of them was the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack, or one of the many ones, and I was like, I really want that, even though we don't have a record player yet, but I don't $100 want it right now. So I'll hold off and maybe it'll be available later. But I was like, I never even knew A, that existed, and B, finding it in the wild.
Yeah, speaking of futuristic technology, vinyl.
Yeah. I had to go find a version of Chrono Trigger on A-Track, and no.
Well, now that we've talked a little bit about kind of the parameters, I've got our first block of music, which we put together mostly because it kind of is reminiscent of hacking or like being in a computer system. So Audra has our first track, which is
Access the Grid from Kingdom Hearts 3D Dream Drop Distance, which hopefully I'll get that right one day. I think I did.
I mean, does anyone really know what any of the Kingdom Hearts games are called after like 1, 2, and 3?
It's a tricky one to say too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I like the just Kingdom Hearts 3D. That was clever.
Ooh, that's a good abbreviation. All right. And then our second one is one of my choices. And it is the version of a beautiful song from NieR Automata that plays on the hacking tracks. So like during a specific context in the game, which we'll get into in a minute. But for now, let's go listen to those selections and come back and feel like elite hackers.
Woo!
Yay!
I mainly picked this song because I'm a huge Tron fan, which...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
And I didn't actually get into Tron, though, until I started playing Kingdom Hearts 2 and they had it.
Oh, the Tron world.
And then I got curious, so I ended up watching the movie, and then I ended up really liking Legacy. So I kind of just felt like I had to pick a Tron-inspired song for this.
Random aside, did you also watch the animated show too?
Yes, I love
Revolution?
Uprising, and
Uprising, that's what it is.
yes, I loved it, and I wanted it to
more.
continue. Yes. I keep hoping maybe they'll go back in Kingdom Hearts, but I know they said, like, only movies or something, which makes me sad.
But now with Disney Plus, maybe we'll get more. I don't know.
Yes. Hopefully. One can hope.
Yeah, maybe we'll get more of the actual show.
Yeah.
All right, so this is definitely Tron inspired. I can hear that for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like, I know I actually haven't played 3D, but I know it does Legacy storyline in it, and I could almost picture Daft Punk doing this.
I can see it. Yeah, I can see the vibe.
Yep.
And they just have a very, to me, kind of sounds like futuristic sci-fi sound.
Yeah,
So.
that's part of their whole sound for sure.
It's the BDD boop, BDD boops. It's just like it's so electronic heavy, and which is exactly what you think of when you think hacking. Like I put in all caps for myself as a note, just hacking. That's literally what this sounds like. It's just you picture hacking in any futuristic video game or movie. This is what comes to mind. It's you just see like Matthew, what's his face? I can't remember his last name, from Hackers, just like jamming out to this as he types away.
Yeah, it's just like what hacking sounds like, and like in my notes I put really makes you feel like you've accessed the grid, but honestly it really just is like that sort of jam.
Yeah, it just encapsulates it.
Yeah, which makes it a great choice to open this episode. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed. I mean, it completely opens with very standard like futuristic beeps and bloops, but then it has some cool driving note runs with those, and then the runs take over about 30 seconds in, and I just really appreciate all the different ways they have the song build. I think that's really, really important. It's not just like static beeps and bloops. Like there's definitely some momentum to it.
It goes on a journey for sure. Like yeah, like it all seems kind of samey at first, and then it around like that 1:30ish mark. Then it has like another fun break.
Yeah, the synth melody comes in and you're like, what? All right, I guess I solved one problem and I'm, on my way to hacking.
Yeah. And you just see the world in a grid of green and black.
Yeah, exactly. And then they had a really cool transition about like 2 minutes and 30 seconds in. It was just like one repeated note.
Yeah, that's what, it just kind of goes on like a chill one note path for a bit until it, I guess, just kind of lets you get in the focus zone. So it gets like, it amps you up for what you're doing, I guess, kind of for the first like 2 minutes. And then it's just like, okay, now you're in it. And then it would loop back again.
It's a journey, a process.
It does make me very, very curious, like what exactly is going on in 3D when this music plays.
Yeah, I want to play it now more just because I was like, ooh, it's Legacy. And I actually didn't mind Legacy, so...
Yeah, I'm part of the minority in that one for us. The driving synth, like this is when we first started thinking of the futuristic theme, and I wanted to pick tracks. This is basically what I was trying to find. I just didn't know about Dream Drop Distance's soundtrack, and I imagine the whole thing isn't like this. This is probably just like the Tron area.
Yeah.
Or like part of the Tron area.
Yeah, like the next one I think that came up for me too when I was listening through some of this other stuff. It was like the digital domination also sounds pretty similar and very cool and futuristic-y and the same kind of hacky vibes in the grid kind of vibe, so must be in the same realm. But yeah, great pick, and I'm exposed to cool new music.
Yay!
Yeah, Dream Drop Distance is not the first soundtrack I would think of kind of delving into with Kingdom Hearts, but that's a really cool song.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a bop.
Speaking of bops.
So yeah, a beautiful song. I kind of took the hacking idea pretty literally. For one of my picks for our future episode. So when I thought, okay, games that are futuristic, NieR Automata came up pretty quickly. It seemed like kind of an obvious choice. But I remembered that within it, there is actually a hacking minigame. Who out of our panel today has played Automata?
Sadly, I have not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't either.
It's on the list. I've done the demo. It sounds awesome.
Okay. Well, basically when you play as a certain character, they have the ability to, it's basically one of the main conflicts in the game is you're an android, you're fighting machines. So one character has the ability to hack. So kind of like delve in, access other machines, and cause them damage through a little hacking mini game, which is a really fun little. I don't know exactly how to describe it. It's sort of like a very simplistic kind of like airplane mini game where you have your little triangle. It's almost like an old computer or old Nintendo game where you have your little triangle-shaped plane and you're maneuvering and
fun.
Shooting the other.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Like a side scroller, like arcade bullet hell kind of thing.
Not side scroller, but yeah, that same kind of idea.
More like asteroids.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, actually, it's rather similar to asteroids, except there are some impediments. Like it's more like you're navigating kind of through an area with blocks, so that you can have some cover.
Ooh.
It's more like a computer grid, actually. Asteroids, but kind of in a computer grid. But one really, 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 really neat thing they did was they changed the music. If you start hacking, whatever, like there are many, many songs in the game that just immediately turn into an 8-bit version.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, of the song. And it's just incredibly cool, and it's seamless, and it looks like based on the credits, and I think this is mentioned in the review, which I'll link, because the review for this the Hacking Tracks album that was like a bonus with the Automata soundtrack explains this really, really well. But there was a lot of programming work actually kind of involved in figuring out how to get the hacking to work and seamlessly go from into that 8-bit sound from different songs and like different points and locations in the game. So Beautiful Song is a really dramatic song, as you all heard.
Yeah, hits you in the face right off the top.
And it's interesting to hear this 8-bit version, and that's kind of one of the reasons I picked it, is because it's big dramatic vocals in the original, and it's really interesting to hear how they translated that into 8-bit, because they did somehow kind of, I think, manage to maintain some of the timbre, with a vocal part and some of the power.
I get what you mean. Yeah, I hear that. It wouldn't be out of place in like Castlevania.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I
like this specific version.
Mm-hmm. Like an early Castlevania game.
Yeah, exactly. Like this would, if you told me this was, if I didn't know this is from NieR, and you're just like, oh yeah, this is what you fight Dracula to in Castlevania 3, I'd have been like, yeah, okay.
Sounds about right.
And it is originally a boss fight. So.
Oh, okay, that tracks.
Oh, neat.
Yep. But yeah, I just love the build-up, and I don't know how many times I've talked about like sampling famous classical music, but this song samples O Fortuna, the dramatic, do 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 do
Oh,
do
okay.
do do.
I hear that.
And that actually really works for the character who's featured during this part of the game, because her whole thing is she's a machine that's kind of like obsessed with the human concept of beauty, and her stage is a stage.
Oh.
So, she's like very just kind of theatrical, dramatic. So it all works.
And yeah, the fact that it's just called A Beautiful Song
A Beautiful
is also
Song.
like almost like she wrote it for herself. Like this is what plays in her head as she destroys her foes.
Yes.
What I do is beautiful.
I like it. And I'm trying to say all this stuff like without spoiling very much, so if it's vague
tricky,
or confusing or sounds like slightly inaccurate, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to avoid spoilers.
And is she whoever it is, like this boss thing or whatever, is she also, she's not part of the hacking part though. That I think is Mr. Number 9 or whatever there.
Right.
Gotcha. I that's the closest I've gotten to the character is having them in Final Fantasy War of the Visions. That's about it for me. But they're also both the NieR Automata characters, FYI, that they brought into War of the Visions are OP as F, and they're the worst to fight against, but they're great to have.
That's good to know. I mean, I would kind of expect that for those two.
Like 2B has this thing where, like, as a reaction, she can just make herself immune to getting hit. She just has like 100% evade, so your character will use their super move, and it'll just be like, miss, and I'm like,
that
why?
Tracks. That tracks.
And then yeah, all of 9S's stuff is very like hacky stuff. It's really cool the way they give them cool moves themed off of what they do.
Yep.
But yeah, I want to play this game because I mean, from NieR
Me too.
and this, yeah.
So it looks like you can hack her.
Ooh.
Yes. Just to clarify that.
I don't know. This game had me back when I remember Rob Steinman talking about it on Random Encounter way back when. A time ago, and he was saying even in the demo when he was messing around, like you can remove, like, I guess you're like another is it your life support? There's some system you can remove from 2B, and just like the game is done.
Yep, it's a chip.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. A weird little detail.
The game says don't remove this. It's vital to you functioning.
And you're like, but Now I want to know why. Oh, oops.
and that's one of the endings.
It's super funny. It's like going to the bucket in Chrono Trigger, and the old man's like, you want to do that? Okay.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
It's such a fun, cheeky little detail.
I have to know what happens.
It's the push the red button.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what it is.
But thanks for making me want to play NieR Automata more, Hilary. Go on.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm really, really trying not to spoil stuff, but I get exactly why you're confused about whether you could hack that character or not, and you will see if you keep playing.
That's okay. I didn't even know you could hack characters. I thought it was just like, like
Environments
Fallout or whatever and stuff like that. You just get into doors and computers and stuff.
Nope, you can hack like normal enemies, you can hack bosses. It's pretty fun.
Which, random aside for everybody, what's your favorite hacking minigame? For me, I do really like the Fallout 3 one, because I always liked finding like the words, like the little I don't know, it was really satisfying when you got it right, trying to find like the sentence strains and stuff like that. It was really neat. I don't know what it was, but I just found it really satisfying.
I'd probably say using the Twilight bracelet in the original dot hack, if that counts.
Oh, I like that one too.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have one coming to mind right now.
I mean, I know Mankind Divided had one, which I was reminded of too. But yeah, I just like the Fallout one. It's simple and easy, but neat.
I would say I've Automata's, I mean, obviously since I picked this song, Automata's up there for me just because of how comprehensive it is. Like you can
Sounds cool.
do all kinds of stuff and try hacking in so many different situations. Like it's just, I don't know, it's very ubiquitous.
Yeah, it sounds very versatile, which a lot of the times it usually is just open doors and
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess there was a version of that too in, I mean, I guess that's kind of what you do in, am I thinking Cyberpunk? It might be Cyberpunk 2077, where you can kind of like hack people on the fly too, which is really neat. You can like upset their implants and stuff. So it sounds similar-ish to that, but maybe this sounds more involved though.
If that's what you do, then yeah.
As far as the
pretty much the
minigame
same
component
thing.
goes. Then there's like Front Mission 3, where you just like randomly type in passwords and hope for the best. But I always liked that. I always felt so satisfied. It was like the weird sort of browser kind of thing they had built into that game, and you're like trying to hack into government websites with passwords, and it always felt, again, like 90s hacking.
Oh, gotta love that.
At any rate, great pick. This was super fun to listen to, and
that was awesome.
like the 8-bit tracks really nicely, but still has so much. It's clearly not 8-bit, but just like has so much fidelity within those
Right?
bits and bytes that they threw in there.
Yeah, I really want to track down that Hacking Tracks album.
For $1 million.
Not quite. All right. So next we've got kind of a nice little block that's a little bit more like of a balance between kind of technology and more natural musical elements, I think. And the first one of those is me again, with Gaia's Garden from CrossCode, which I'm excited to talk about. And then next we do have a Mario pick. So you want to tell us what that is?
Yeah, for sure. Next one, Silence in Motion from Final Fantasy VIII. And yeah, this song's a great, I'll dive into it once we get to it. But yeah, it's definitely it's different than what you would expect from a sci-fi song, I think. So yeah, I'm excited.
Well, let's go check out this block and we'll reconvene and talk about it in a minute. So let's talk about Gaia's Garden. I don't know. The title is what kind of hooked me at first because it's sort of a very, it reminded me of more kind of magical RPGs, maybe an early quintet game, something like that is focused a lot more on like nature, maybe a little bit about the conflict between nature and technology. But what I found was just a really beautiful little song that kind of blends some kind of techie musical elements and some more natural ones. So I'm really excited about it. And CrossCode is a wonderful game that takes place mostly within a virtual game with a protagonist, Leah, who has lost some memory and has limited to no ability to speak in the game and is trying to figure out what happened and what's going on. So it's an interesting premise too.
Which is cool because they also gave it there's a technical reason why she can't speak. It's not just like silent protagonist Link style.
Yes, it's something technical, right?
Yeah, like the mic or the voice or something isn't working properly. I remember Jono telling me about it and I can't remember.
But she still successfully emotes a lot from what I've heard.
Yes.
Which, yeah, I've heard she's a great character.
Yeah, the game looks great from what I've seen. As I was saying in our off pre-show, whatever chit-chats, is that I edited the video review for Jono's gameplay and stuff like that for it back when we were keeping up on those, and it looks great.
Awesome.
It's on my backlog too, one day.
So, right, Gaia's Garden is one of the biggest areas in the game, which is something else I've found out. It's a large, like, rainforesty area, virtual, obviously, and it leads to a bunch of different areas. Like, it's large and has a lot of markers and a lot of different sites in it that you have to go through throughout the game. I think there are like multiple temples, so you hear this music a decent amount. And some of the main things that I really, really enjoyed about it was just kind of this undertow of kind of sweeps, a little bit more of those beeps and bloops, and even what I like to call like the industrial Final Fantasy VI sound is sort of like, I wish I could point it out. I should find the timestamp, but it's sort of like a sound like steam being let out of something. I don't know. Yeah. I heard that a couple times in there too, but and it's just overlaid with like a really pretty, more conventional kind of RPG-ish melody. So I just really love listening to the two together, and that's the main reason I picked this song.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think there's a moment of it around like 46 seconds in. It's just like this little like do
yep.
kind of thing.
That's it.
Yeah. I once you said the Final Fantasy VI like industrial thing, I was like, oh, that. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah, like this game is the soundtrack is very reminiscent of what the game is encapsulating with its kind of throwback to retro gaming and such in its way.
Right.
Modern conveniences. I mean, it's very much modeled off of Secret of Mana and that sort of style gameplay and world building, hence why this is such a huge map and then leads to everything else because everything's connected a la Secret of Mana sort of style.
Okay, that
So
makes
it's all
sense.
seamless, so to speak. It's not like a world map
That's
idea.
another reason for me to play it. I like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. And this, when you said like rainforest and stuff, like all that tracks, that's very like green, garden, verdant. Like I picture, because of the future aspects in the music, I picture more like, I thought biodome,
Yeah.
but I would have been like one of those domes from like the future we never got in Chrono Trigger kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's very pretty, very serene, very unintrusive, which is great considering it's a big, large area that you spend a lot of time running around in, so you don't want it to be wearing on you.
Yeah, there's like a softness to it that's
Yeah.
interesting to hear.
It's like blue light.
Yeah, it feels very blue light, honestly. It feels very much like that fantasy forest setting that you can just like sure, there might be enemies around or whatever, but there's like a relaxing, like welcomingness to it.
Yeah, it's a little bit welcoming. And it's welcoming with just kind of like a hint of technology.
Yeah,
Mostly in like the rhythm and the
still,
percussion. Yeah. So you don't forget that you're in a video game, but it's relaxing.
It's also like to throw back to, again, another Square Enix classic, it's Zeal, like just again like that kind of almost that really like ethnic future kind of instrumentation.
I'm trying to think of exactly what instrument I want to say it sounds like. But yeah, I know what you mean.
It's something, yeah, it's like synthy electronic, ethnically ambiguous, just to sound like exotic and futury, right? It's really very cool, and fits that marriage of technology and nature. Yeah, it's the future tech nature sound.
It's biotech.
Yeah, great. That's exactly great terminology.
Yeah, this song, it brings to mind that forest in FF10. Oh god, I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Makala.
Yeah, Maka
Yeah.
something.
Makalia.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I don't know why I think that song
Machiavellian forest.
the
Machiavellian,
forest,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean that game definitely goes for the whole like the dynamic between like nature and technology and everything. So I don't know, I think this song captures that very well.
But also has like no stakes in that because this is just a video game world that theoretically the developers were like, oh, we like the vibe of that Final Fantasy X game, let's put that in our game. Because this isn't like a real world, so to speak. It's a weird meta thing where this was all programmed to be programmed.
Oh yeah, there's layers to the yeah.
Mhm. And also, not to go too far back, but Macalania.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's the
there you go.
Macalania Woods. Yep.
Oh yeah. Also, I remember people also saying Macarena Woods. That's another one that came up at that time.
So,
That's
Machiavelli
what
and
my mind
Macarena.
jumped to, and I was like, that's probably not right.
Hey, Macarena.
Oh no, I'm not going to be able to forget that. So in contrast, let's go over to Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, this is a gem.
Yeah, this song's great. I think that it's one of the first songs that popped into mind when I thought of this theme. Because so the city that this song plays in, Estar, I don't know how you say it, but
That sounds right.
yeah,
They haven't voiced Final
yeah,
Fantasy
sounds
yet.
pretty.
You can do whatever you want.
yeah, I
It's
could
still
say,
in
yeah.
that ambiguous area where you'll meet someone who's like Esther, and you're like, what? It's Estar.
I'm gonna go with the Estar. But yeah, it's this really technologically advanced city. It's like cloaked from the rest of the world. I forgot how they do that. It's just like it's invisible until like there's just one scene where you have to like climb up on nothing to get into it.
Oh yeah, it's got like a barrier or shield thing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that like you can't see it from like the outside world or whatever. But yeah, this song itself is just very I guess the word that comes to mind for me is like quirky. Like there's a
Yep.
lot of different sounds and noises coming in, and like I think just like that part, and it's around 2 minutes 24 seconds in when it starts picking up, like that's just like
the
when I hear
tempo
that part,
increase.
yeah, like that's like, okay, this is a good song. That's like I don't know, I just had that moment of like I was playing the game, I was like in the marketplace area of that city, and the city's also just huge as well, but just like that part of the song started playing, and I'm like, this goes really well with the like kind of just bustling nature of the place, and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
it's just a really weird, like the future, like it's technology advanced and everything, but like kind of weird and quirky, and like I don't know, it's just this track goes a lot harder than it needed to, which is really great. Like it's just like a city, and like they did such a great job with it.
Well, it sounds like Uematsu was just like randomly like, I'm gonna push this electronic button, see what sound that happens. Oh, that works. Cool. Let's
It
turn
really does
this
sound
knob.
like it, yeah.
Oh, cool. Like it sounds like the 50s idea of what the future sounds like. It sounds like a weird like 50s future spacewalk with all like the beep whoop whoop beep, like weird.
It is your very like
stuff.
classic sci-fi beeps and boops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
It's not synthy.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it a lot because Uematsu builds off of that so well. Like it starts with that, but then you get this whole like waltz melody on top of that.
It just fits for an expansive city, futuristic city.
And that melody just fits really well to me with the rest of 8's soundtrack. So like I really appreciated that little through line.
Yeah, no, for sure, exactly. And like, I guess I don't know. I can't get into spoilers in this, can I?
That's okay.
Just on the side. Okay, yeah. I don't know, just like with Laguna and like being like in charge and everything. I don't know. It just that whole like off vibe of that place. Like it's not even like off in a bad way, so to speak. It's just like weird, you know? It's just like funny.
Right. Quirky.
And that like whole
Like you said.
reveal, like when you do see Laguna, it's just like they're like playing ping pong or something. It's just really funny. Yeah, I think the music really exemplifies that for the city.
I had completely forgotten about it until you now reminded me where and what it was. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a good one.
Yeah, it I think that's an example of like a song on a Final Fantasy soundtrack you might overlook, but you definitely shouldn't because it's
No,
it's
exactly.
really
It's
interesting.
It's got a lot of range. Because like you just think like, what the heck is this weird thing? Like right off the top, you think it's going to be some sort of goofy character theme, like character pratfall. Oh, haha, they're all doing a silly thing. But then you get this really nice that piano comes in. That gives it that kind of airy, spacey, gives it something tangible to like build the song off of, and then that driving hustle and bustle aspect too when that comes in. It goes places.
The rhythm gets really fast. I think I wrote down at around like 2 minutes 30 seconds in, and I think in my notes I actually said something like, "Wait a minute, what? Am I running out of time on Mario? Like, is this the motion part of Silence in Motion?"
Oh, that might explain the title.
Yeah.
It's the hustle and bustle of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely the city vibe.
Yeah, I mean, it's got the futuristic instrumentation, but it's got like all the markings of a good town theme. So, awesome choice.
Yeah, it doesn't wear out its welcome, and it's also. Yeah, again, when you first think of future, I didn't initially go to something like Final Fantasy VIII until I saw that you picked something from Mario. I was like, oh yeah, I guess so. Because like even Final Fantasy VII could be argued as like a futuristic game with its steampunk kind of vibes, but also it's not. It's, Final Fantasy games sit in a weird in-between sometimes as to, are they future? Are they past? Are they a contemporary thing? Some are very
it's one of
obvious,
those
like
weird,
9, but...
Yeah. Especially with like how a lot of them tend to, like sometimes the like more sci-fi elements will come like later. It's like, so it's just like, it's a weird, a lot of them walk a fine line.
Yeah, there's always something sci-fi-ish in them, I guess, when you think about it. Even like the first one when they're like, oh, by the way, giant fighting robot that you do not want to touch ever, but it's there.
Yeah.
And airships and stuff.
And airships and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and that's all like future-ish, but not quite.
Magical armor.
Yeah.
That they're basically mech suits. Yep.
Yeah, it's really very neat. But 8 was definitely like the most futuristic now that you reminded me of it. I was like, okay, yeah, that's very clear. It fits for sure. Yeah.
At a certain point they go in space. Well, I guess it's not the only Final Fantasy where you go in space, but it
Yeah, lunar whale, come on.
Okay, if you're on the moon, does that count as futuristic?
That's the thing, right? I mean,
That's right,
theoretically, magic can get you there. The Lunarians, they're just a race. They just come from there.
Another series I was like considering was actually Grandia, because they're uncovering things from like a very technologically advanced but past civilization. So I was like, I'm gonna leave it alone.
And I love that idea. I love that concept of a future so far that it's regressed. Because like they lost things and such, which we've seen in a lot of obviously post-apocalyptic things. I mean, there's a great book called The Mote in God's Eye, and I'm blanking on the 2 authors that did it. But it's a really great seminal sci-fi work I highly recommend. But it does have this idea that like the human race expanded under the stars and colonized so many planets, and then they started a civil war amongst themselves and ended up bombarding some of those planets literally back to the Stone Age. And then they lost a lot of their spacefaring technology. So as they rebuilt and then got the technology again, they would start spanning out from some of the places that still had civilization that was advanced enough, and then finding like planets that were like in the medieval age again. And it was such a weird idea.
Yeah.
Kind of maybe similar to Lunar in a way.
Or Star Ocean.
I've yet to play it, but that's cool.
Actually, definitely Star Ocean. That's except for them all being from the same civilization, but that's one of the main conflicts in that series too, is like some planets are technologically advanced, some are not. Somewhat related life forms.
That's kind of cool. I want to play more. I know there's an old like role-playing system, and my Dungeons and Dragons DM had brought up, and I was like, I want to play that. Where's the idea that you're in a fantasy setting, but then you can find in like this hidden dead zone, there's actually like an advanced set of ruins and stuff like that, because something had basically happened to regress the entire world. Breath of Death 7 is kind of like that too, the first like Z-Boy game.
So it's kind of another way you can do far future.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole circular conversation of, is it sci-fi?
Exactly. And that actually seems like a good opportunity to go into our next block, which is, let's see,
the North American block.
I mean, pretty much. I was debating whether to say that or like more like exploration, sci-fi. But yeah, so that has a track from Greg. So what are you bringing on, Greg?
Who's first? I'm first. Am I first? I am first. I thought Trail of Hope was first. Yeah, I went with, I had a lot of different thoughts about what to do for future. I knew I wanted to get something, though, synthy, which, again, Access the Grid really did hit that vibe for me, but it was more the quick thing. But I still wanted that, like, synthy ambience, that slower stuff. And, like, it's hard. When I think of sci-fi and, like, synthy chill stuff, I think a lot of games that aren't RPGs, like Metroid and Perfect Dark and stuff like that. So, it took a while to kind of figure things out. I was looking at like the old Shadowrun, the new Shadowrun. I never beat Super Nintendo Shadowrun is brutally hard, and I never really got through it. But I did beat Shadowrun Returns, and there's some good tracks on it, but nothing that really like grabbed me. And then I remembered, I loved Mankind Divided, and I was like, right, we did cover Deus Ex, so it counts. It's great, and that game was great, and it had really hit that ambient vibe. I remember really digging the soundtrack. Sarif Industries and Human Revolution really hit that kind of chill synth vibe for me. And we'll get in more into it.
Thank you. And you were right to question, because actually we're going to be listening to Audra's song first. So Audra.
Oh, well, I picked A Trail of Hope from Mass Effect Andromeda.
Great.
Which is interesting. It's not the first thing I'd think of. I mean, I thought someone would pick Mass Effect, but the fact that you went with Andromeda, which is like the bastard stepchild or whatever that people don't want to acknowledge exists, but I'm sure it's still a bop. I mean, I know Caitlin will stand it, and I still want to play it anyways. But yeah, it was nice. As a nice surprise exposure.
I did like it. It has its flaws for sure, but it's a fun game still.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack was actually quite surprisingly good.
If it lives up to the rest of the series hype, then I'm excited to listen to it more.
Definitely. And that's something important to remember. Like some games have really, really good soundtracks.
Yes.
All right. So let's go listen to A Trail of Hope and then Sarif Industries.
Well, the storyline for Mass Effect Andromeda is that colonists went to the Andromeda galaxy about 600 years into the future of the... So it has even more kind of futuristic undertones to it from our galaxy. And you play as what they call the Pathfinder, whose job is to guide the new colonists to these supposedly golden worlds where they can rebuild society, basically. And things end up going horribly wrong because that's, how things happen in those stories. But
you're not a shepherd, you're a pathfinder. You're not meant to keep things in order. You just go there. But
the Pathfinders still have to do the job that they were given and hopefully restore order and get things on track again. And I think that A Trail of Hope actually really encompasses that. It's a very grand sounding, sweeping song in a lot of respects, and it has some darker undertones to it. And then there is this, for lack of a better word, a trail of hope that kind of goes through the whole thing. And I think that I just really like that about the song. I feel like it really encapsulates the Pathfinder mission.
Yeah, it's a really expansive sounding song to me. I wrote that down like multiple times in my notes. Mm-hmm. It's got some nice brass, which actually is an instrument type we haven't heard a ton of yet, so that's neat.
Yeah.
It's hard with brass because it makes it very pomp and circumstancey, so it can take away from the sci-fi-ish of it and just kind of make it like any old modern. Sometimes it's tricky in the way it gets used. Mm-hmm. And that was part of my issue with thinking of Star Wars, because it didn't sound sci-fi, it just sounded grand, epic, adventure-y.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because I can think of a few sci-fi themed game soundtracks. Some are graphic adventures, Moons of Madness I think is one that uses a lot of brass, but it's also kind of horror-ish, so that kind of works because it's a lot of low kind of but then I think back to classical works before you had a lot of the synthy type technology to make futuristic sounds, and Holst the Planets used a lot of brass.
If it's used right, it mm-hmm. does give you that grand space
expansive
vibe. It doesn't have to be electronica synth stuff. It just has to be done in such a way that it doesn't just sound like generic college music. Great American Bandstand kind of thing. And this does the job right, where it's mm-hmm. it has that thing, but the brass gives it that aspirational vibe. Mm-hmm. That's what it is needed. That's the hope for sure, when it has that big swelling around the 45-second mark, and you're just we're going to brave new worlds, we're going to accomplish things, life's gonna be
that
great.
Sense of kind of wonder.
Mm-hmm. Before, like you said, that little darker undertone, the threat of the unknown.
Mm-hmm. Good pick.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, to me, this song sounds very, you are saying, grand, and it feels very cinematic to me. It feels very much that grand scope, and I don't know, that's just what came to mind for me. But yeah, it's a cool pick.
Now I'm noticing how it's a little bit more similar to some of the Knights of the Old Republic or some of the Star Wars soundtracks.
Sorta.
A little bit.
It is, but it's still its own thing. It's just got more of that American cinema thing to it.
Mm-hmm.
Amusingly though, when I first was listening this, I was ooh, Mass Effect stuff, fun. And it wasn't what I was thinking of. When I think Mass Effect, the first thing that comes to mind is you looking at the galaxy map.
Yes.
That kind of synthy beepy boopy. So when I listened to you when your pick of Access the Grid, that's what I was this sounds more like Mass Effect that I think of, but it was really weird, but not.
I'm playing with expectations.
Yeah.
Soundtracks are varied. Yep.
It's true. Also, the name John Paesano, that poor guy's last name, I'm sure he was bugged a lot for, hey, Paesano. What else has Paesano done, though? I don't know. Because I don't think he did the original Mass Effect stuff.
No, I don't think he did either.
Crud, I'm blanking on his name, who did the original one, but either way, it sounds good. And now I want to listen to the Planet Suite, because God,
me too.
It's so good.
It is.
Oh, he did the Maze Runner trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And Daredevil, scored by Saga Newcomer.
Oh, Daredevil is pretty great.
Yeah.
And he did some music for the Spider-Man Miles Morales video game. So random kind of cinematic and game stuff here and there, it seems like.
He did a good job on the soundtrack, the Andromeda soundtrack, so.
It must have been one of his earliest ones.
Hopefully he'll do more.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like he's building a good name for himself. So.
I'm looking at his Apple Music page.
Save that for later.
Yeah, yep. Doing that, cutting myself off. It's just so interesting to look into these composers and pieces.
Well, yeah, because we get so many Japanese names in this, like this whole, so much of this list, it's so easy to just draw on Square Enix classics and modern pieces as well. And yeah, to get the odd North American artist in here, like from CrossCode and this, and then my choice, it's a refreshing change, but you can also hear how different the dynamic is too, in, I guess, mentally where they go for their idea of space. Like, this is very much like the NASA vision of space. Is Mass Effect,
Oh my gosh, I love that.
right?
This one's NASA, this one's hacker.
Yeah, and like, but when you think of like the sci-fi fantasy of like Final Fantasy and stuff, like it's just a little more weird and alien and like yeah, like synthy quirky. Generally, what their approach is and how they bring space and sci-fi, like it's a lot more fantastical than what like Mass Effect does and such. Mass Effect is very much an organized. It's halfway between like Star Trek and Star Wars, I guess, in a way. Like it's still very much that ordered view of space. Yeah, exactly.
No, actually, interestingly, Access to Grid was done by the World Ends With You composer, which I thought was an interesting. I'll just drop. Which
everyone really digs that, and that as a soundtrack.
Yeah, definitely. I'll drop that in. I can put it in the notes.
Too woo-wee.
I would not even attempt to say that.
Its acronym always makes me think of weird things. Anyways, who wants to talk about Human Revolution?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Almost said Jensen Ackles. Very different character. Adam Jensen.
Yes.
There's very much a vibe to Human Revolution and its soundtrack that it tries to hit that cyberpunk note. And it's not as gritty as I guess some cyberpunk stuff is. Like I said, I was kind of looking for that more like chunky, gritty, ambient vibe of like what you think of when you think of like Blade Runner and such. Get that Vangelis kind of thing. And Shadowrun on the SNES kind of was hitting it for me, but there just wasn't quite enough of it. And I was that's a soundtrack that's begging for like a nice modern recreation or something. I don't know. There is an artist that did a version of it, and there's some pretty good takes on it, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. And then I remembered Human Revolution and went and tracked down this track and was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want. Just that sci-fi, cyberpunk, chill ambience of like the vision of the future. But Sarif Industries is a bit cleaner. It's not like that gritty walking the street just like Chicago, like you're in a corporate building, right? So it's still got that bit of like, we are Sarif, we're the future, kind of notes to it.
This is a nice part of cyberpunk town.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the upscale.
And it's what Adam works for. He works for Sarif, if I'm not mistaken. He's privately contracted for them or something. It's been a while since I played the game. But like those, it's not, as we said before, it's not quite the blue notes and such, but it's still very much there. Human Revolution was much more futuristic orangey blacks and stuff like that was its overall color scheme. And this kind of has that, which is very similar to like Blade Runner. It's like those oranges and like the warmer tones of like lots of rain, lots of warm colors. And this feels very much like that, but just again, a bit cleaner. You're not walking the streets and looking at the downtrodden with their faulty implants and this and that. The people who are probably going to start the revolution, you're still at the top of the food chain at this point when you're listening to this track.
You can hear that. I think that's really well illustrated musically.
You get a sense of that from the song a lot, just in its instrumentation. And
I think the pacing of it too.
It reminds me of that, oh gosh, it's got a little bit of that. It's not as dramatic as it, but that's that trailer song that so many people used that I attribute it to Sunshine, the sci-fi horror film with Cillian Murphy, which is great. If anyone has or hasn't seen it, also has an excellent soundtrack. But it's like that, and then like there's it's got that bit of like synthy undertone. Oh, I wish I could remember the name of it. There's probably like a handful of people listening who are like, oh, I know what he's talking about, and everyone's like, what?
If you can find it, I will provide it so we can all be on the same page.
See if I can figure it out in a second, but by all means, keep talking about the song.
I think it fits perfectly for a futuristic and setting. Just it gives you that sense, and yeah, I could see it being almost like the cleaner version of a gritty cyberpunk world.
So can you tell us anything about like Sarif Industries in the game? Like give us a little bit of in-game context about the company?
Yeah, it's been a while, like I said, since I've played it. Has anyone else played Human Revolution?
No.
It's a great, third-person-y, first-person... I can't remember. I think it's all third-person, actually. Like action RPG with great progression system for, assigning skill points and stuff like that. And one of those ones that makes a case for, like, well, then, why not Tomb Raider? Why not this and that? But I think this just because the story gives you so many more choices and such. That's the big defining thing is, like, it's not just strictly going through shooting people and stuff. Like, you get into conversation trains and you can talk your way through things.
Oh, that's always neat.
Yeah. Like, there is an achievement for the game that if you can beat it completely by incapacitating everybody except for the bosses. Like, the bosses you have to violently fight, whereas everybody else you can do non-lethal takedowns if you go that route. So I played through my only playthrough I've done was all stealth based.
That is what I would strive for.
Yeah.
When given that option, although I'm terrible at stealth.
I suck at stealth, but I try for it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's got good combat mechanics, so if you do get into the shooting aspect and such, it's not, for example, Mass Effect 1. It's more, refined like 2 and 3 and such.
Oh, nice.
With its shooting and cover shooting and stuff like that. So at least it plays well if you want to go that route. But even like in stuff like this, like Elder Scrolls and such, I just like going the stealth route. It adds just that extra level of challenge and fun to it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, again, build all your stats towards that because you have a few different like trees to augment his implants and stuff like that. And so Sarif Industries is the company that Adam works for. Again, I think he's like he was contracted for as like their head of security or something. Again, it's probably been like a decade since I played. And in there, one of the big corporations that do like medical augmentations and stuff. So like they'll do cybernetic limbs and things like that too.
So biotech.
Literally back on their feet. Yeah, and like Jensen has cybernetic arms, and he has like some head implants and stuff like that too. I can't remember if he has legs that have been implanted. Like something bad happened to him. I can't remember his turgid history, but something went down for him, and so he has these cybernetic arms that I think were provided by Sarif at some point, and that may have been part of why he was contracted by them. It was like, we'll give you free arms and you work for us kind of thing, because these are otherwise many thousands of dollars.
Otherwise, we will be sending you EOBs and your insurance won't cover it. Well,
basically, because this is Detroit. So
hopefully that's not going to be the case, in the sci-fi future. But
yeah, hopefully, I would like to go more Star Trek route.
Yes,
free everything with minor exceptions. But again, feel free, listeners, to correct me if I'm wrong. But that's just what's coming to mind. But I just remember, so Sarif is like this clean kind of medical corporation, and this very much gives you that vibe of walking through a clean corporate building with a bit of like something underneath it all, because it's called Human Revolution for a reason. Something is going to go down. You can likely assume that it's going to happen, not to spoil too much, but like it happens to the 1%. They're the ones that are going to be the problem, and corporations like this one are probably somewhere in there. So you kind of have to figure that out as you go. But
there's many great cyberpunk stories.
Exactly. It's disrupt the status quo. That's what I love about sci-fi, as I'm sure many of us do, is the questioning of our current state and the what if factor of pushing it down the line. But yeah, hopefully that provides a bit more context for you and you can kind of hear and or connect a bit more to it now.
Yeah, definitely. I want to go back and listen to the song again, actually knowing that.
Yeah.
Although, I still say it fits pretty well.
I feel like there is a bit of that in the undertones of the song.
Mm-hmm.
Just that there's something going on.
Something's not right at Sarif Industries.
Yeah, I got some sort of like kind of sinister undertones through the song when I heard it.
Yeah, like it's just, again, don't trust big biz kind of idea, but at the same time, there's still advertisements saying, we'll help you, we're the future, we're this and that. So like there's that glimmer of, again, that trail of hope to tie it back to Audra's song, the Americans aspect.
What is it, would you say, like in the instrumentation? I'm trying to pinpoint it myself, like of this one, that makes it sinister. Do you think it's more rhythm? Do you think it's like other instrumentation?
It's definitely like the instrumentation itself, less the rhythm, because the rhythm keeps it pretty mellow, chill, and it's unintrusive because it's just kind of drones in the background while you're there the whole time, so you don't want to get tired of it. And it's hard at first because like the first, like, because it's a brief piece, but like the first 30 seconds or so is, again, has that bit of like bright, clean, optimistic, and then it kind of has like, there's like a bass line, a bass note that kind of is in there, like a bit of like a, I don't want to say like the wahs of like Mass Effect, but it's still like one of those kind of synthy instruments, just like there's a little like a ding, kind of like a little bit of dissonance.
Yeah.
That kind of plays in there later in the track that just makes you go like, okay, we're still in a future that's not quite in alignment.
Yeah, I was trying. I mean, it must be more the dissonance.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. There's just something that makes you feel like slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like something just below the surface.
And there's something there.
Yeah.
I think what was causing me a little bit of like, the reason why I said rhythm is because I think it's the sustained dissonance. It doesn't just like go away. It kind of lurks.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. But yeah, no, I highly recommend the game and the soundtrack.
And a series I really want to play.
Yes.
Yeah, I really want to go back and play the older ones, even though I know they don't hold up as well. But it's still a neat series, and very much like I want to play Blade Runner the game. Like I think these are kind of a close hit to that. And I was thinking of looking at Cyberpunk stuff too, but I also know a lot of Cyberpunk 2077 stuff is their radio tracks and such as well. There isn't as much. There is some ambient stuff, like it has a whole soundtrack and such, but I haven't played enough of it that any of it like really jumps out at me.
Right.
And same with like Shadowrun Returns. There wasn't anything that was like, oh, that was a bop. Like there's like one track that kind of came to mind for that idea, but just need something a bit more chill. And Deus Ex definitely hits that really nicely. So, and then also there's the fun thing, which I can't remember which one, but I think in Adam's apartment or in there's a couple rooms there because it was just after I think Square Enix had acquired was Eidos, I think that did Deus Ex. I think it was right after Square Enix had just acquired them. So there was like a poster for like Final Fantasy like 26 or something in one of like the random rooms.
Oh my goodness.
As like a funny little nod that super far in the future Final Fantasy is still around.
One can hope.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was 26 or something. I was like, it'd be really funny if it was 16. Like we're there, but we're not quite that far in the future yet.
That's funny.
Which is always the fun part of these like predictive games and such, of wondering like, this is where they saw the future X years ago, but you know, where are we now? Like we're coming up to like Robo's future. We're getting there, 2300.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 20. Yeah. And you know, 1999 happened, the day of Labos happened, and we're all still here. So
Yeah, it's kind of wild to think of how far along we are in that timeline.
yeah, we didn't have bubble cities in 1999. What the heck?
Yeah, that's a little sad. And wow, what a perfect segue.
Oh, yes.
Because that is the series we're going to talk about next.
Oh, yeah.
Because what better context to talk about futuristic stuff in than time travel games?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, this time around, we have got first a track from Chrono Cross and then one from Chrono Trigger.
Yes.
And I will let everyone introduce their tracks. So, Mario, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we're diving in with the Dead Sea, the Tower of Geddon from Chrono Cross. And yeah, we'll hear some, speaking of sinister songs.
Yeah, right.
And different visions of the future. So yeah, we'll give it a listen.
Great. And then, Greg, you have our last track. Well, before the bonus track, at least.
Yeah, I went with a character motif from the future with Robo's theme because, I don't know, when you think future, you can't help but think of that plucky robot that could.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Very important. All right, let's go listen to those, and we'll be back.
right, yeah. So the Dead Sea is it's a lot when you get to it in the game. It's this image of a very like ruined future, or like it's basically, or like lore wise, it's like a condensed version of a ruined future. So there's like lots of like broken highways and like roaming spirits, and like you go into like a maw at some point with like zombies roaming around, or I don't know what, I guess like zombie-ish creatures.
Everything's just been kind of warped or like torn apart.
Exactly, or like torn apart. Yeah, it's a very different vision of the future, but yeah, and I think the music really reflects that sort of like something's up, you know, like obviously you step into that like the Dead Sea and see all this and you're like, okay, what's up? But like it's very much captures that like mysterious and like ominous like tone. Like it feels very tense,
Just despondent.
yeah, the song just feels very despondent and very tense, and like as like I'm sure the characters are going through, the players also just like, what the heck's going on, like what happened to this place. So yeah, and you like slowly uncover as you go through the area and you get to like the tower at the end. But yeah, it's a very it's a very like bleak look at the future, since it's like destroyed stuff and everything, and like thematically and this song just captures that really well. And like yeah, I think Chrono Cross goes into some really cool places with its themes, and like kind of like looking at the consequences of trigger and stuff like that, and kind of seeing what happens to futures. It's like the whole multiverse thing of like futures that weren't your own and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a cool song. I think it really sets the tone for like getting into that sort of thematic material.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's kind of tense, but with that sort of like exploring kind of feel. Like,
Yeah.
what happened here? How? And yeah, I think it definitely does musically set you up for some of those questions, like getting to the bottom of what exactly happened, like what the Dead Sea is, and, you know, finding out it is a destroyed future. So kind of what does that mean? What does that mean for our future? What can we do?
Yeah.
There's a level of uncertainty to it that's really well conveyed.
And that's very reminiscent of Chrono Trigger when you first get to the future, and it's still that very much confusion of where are we, what happened, especially since you get thrown there kind of by accident. And I also do love how the song starts out with some subtle notes of Balthazar's theme from Chrono Trigger. The, like,
Oh wow, yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and then it quickly like goes into its own thing, but it's still,
Yeah.
and like that's one of the most like depressing themes from Chrono Trigger.
Yes.
Of just like, and especially when you're going through like all his paperwork of like the future and how it kind of was happening, and how as he was working on things, and it's heartbreaking.
Oh, that's
that
right.
whole
Wow,
thing.
What a neat little motif to have there.
Yeah, I feel it really fits the bleakness of this, of again, you know, still like the future never changes kind of thing. We still mess it up somewhere somehow.
How can we not mess it up? Can we not mess it up?
And also just like how it contrasts with like the rest of the game's world too. Like
Yep.
the islands are so peaceful, and it's a very different.
They're absolutely vibrant. Like it's
Yeah.
I don't know. Like Arnie Village and the islands are like full of life, vibrant, and then the Dead Sea is just completely still.
Yeah.
Snap name.
It's kind of like Final Fantasy X has that a little bit too. Some points where they're, I guess, it is 10. Does it ever get nailed down that 10 is like post-apocalyptic, or it's just another world, isn't it? It's not like, it's like a very future version of Spira and stuff. Because Zanarkand did exist, and then it was.
That's right. Yeah,
Xanarkand
Xanarkand
Destroyed.
existed in the past
Yeah.
for Spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. So whereas like his Titus's, however you want to say it, his home was very futuristic and everything, you know, playing
Yeah.
sports in spheres of water, but and then he gets demolished and he gets sent through another universe time warp or whatever. So yeah, it's so similar idea that somewhere out there is just these ruins of a city.
That got
It's that
destroyed.
argument. Yeah, exactly. And that, again, the argument of like, what is future? I mean, arguably we could have brought in like even Secret of Mana, because like there's, again, Secret of Mana
The
has
videos!
yeah, it's such a weird, flimsy thing. And
Where did that even come from? Yeah.
I don't know if it was explored or not, because I know there was more in the Japanese release than we got in the North American localization, but I still doubt they went that much further into it. But like, there's just that little hint of like this, what happened in the past, and there was and you know, you got the Mana Fortress, which is clearly this thing of advanced technology
Yep.
buried in the past, right? And yeah, those videos of like the Mana Beasts attacking and this whole war thing, you're just like, I want to know what that is. I want that too. Like,
How'd
that
they get this on film? Yeah.
yeah, right. And there's some great artwork in, you know, that art, that concept art that they have that's very like Secret of Mana-y. And there's I think for Secret of Mana 2, where you can see the party in like this jungle, but then there's like some like ruined like actual like apartment skyscraper kind of buildings in the distance, not like ruins of like Mayan temple stuff that you find like in the Light Temple and stuff. Like so there was clearly this idea that like even Secret of Mana and Second Densetsu 2 and Second Densetsu 3 took place in like this weird distant future after like a modern time. Yeah, after this modern time that was destroyed by these mana beasts and again humans' hubris of abusing power and stuff, right? So bringing it back to Chrono Cross, yeah,
I think I wanted to bring a song that brought in kind of a well, not to bring down the mood or whatever, but just brings down like a different sort of like it's not really that. Well, obviously, it's not the beep boop bop beep sci-fi future.
Yeah, it can be.
It's a different take on the future.
Well, absolutely. Like you can have that aspirational, what we hope the future can be, and we have that idea of like, you know, the present kind of future-y technology vibe of it all, and then there's the what if we F it all up kind of future.
the ethical concerns, right?
Yeah.
Or the idea of like a ruined future.
It gets you thinking. Yeah,
it's a different facet, and good that we have something representing it here for sure.
And yeah, Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross do the job of that with their future stuff as they're more the cautionary tale future.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas like Mass Effect's just cool story in the future.
But even in some very bleak futuristic stories, you get some moments of hope, and we're going to talk about a character who kind of exemplifies that.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah, Robo.
We all love him.
Robo's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether you do or don't use him in your party, that's up for grabs. I mean, he's a pretty good tanky character. Can pack a lot of punch. Magic's kind of but like if you give him the right stuff, he can cause some damage for sure. But like, yeah, the way you find him, like how the beautiful storytelling they did with Robo Chrono Trigger is just a masterwork in general with its storytelling in so many ways with so much with so little.
Yeah, you only get little kind of snippets that you see. Because like you mentioned, Greg, like you're kind of dropped into a confusing situation in the future and you meet Robo really quickly. And
then you have to do the whole who do you want to leave behind kind of thing. If I recall very quickly after that like you get this little like sequence of Luca like taking care of him because she's just all about like she's like the steampunk element, I guess, of because Chrono's world, the present, so to speak, is still very medieval, but with a little bit of steampunk techiness to it that Luca kind of encapsulates. So when she finds this piece of future technology, it's like, oh my gosh, this is my playground, and let me figure this thing out. And luckily, it's apparently not so advanced that she can't repair a robot that's from 1,300 years into or give or take into the future. But you still get this beautiful little moment between the two of them, and you start seeing it. He's kind of got like a Tin Man story of like finding his heart and finding the human in him, which is like some of the most exciting parts of even like Star Trek, like when you think of like 7 of 9 or the hologram Doctor, Data. Like it's always really interesting finding these characters that want to learn to feel, so to speak, or want to connect with humanity. And then when he spoilers, meets his family, and they're like, no, you're defective because you feel things, It's just like, oh, feelings are a defect, and it's a really like emotional couple of things.
I get so offended.
By that point, I'm like so defensive of Robo. Yeah.
And so in this bleak future, and you meet Robo, and then finally he gets fired up, and he's working the next morning after Luca has spent all night working on him, and you get this banging theme of just hope and excitement and Rick Astley, and it's absolutely just a bop. And so I don't think any of you had said earlier when we talked about it that had heard the Blake Robinson synthetic orchestra version. He's got 3 volumes that kind of goes through most of the soundtrack. And I think he did a bonus volume too. I owned the first one for the longest time, and then I finally kind of got the other ones. And you can hear, obviously, it's all synthetic. He doesn't have his own full orchestra, but it's still great. And I was really torn because the version that's on the recently released Chrono Trigger orchestral arrangement is just incredibly, but it's just so short. And I always want more of it. Whenever Gado's song comes on that arrangement album and Robo's theme comes on, I just can't help but like dance because they're just they just hit them so well. But the thing that I loved about what Blake Robinson did with his take on it is the marriage of how he worked in Luca's theme into it, because the two characters are so intertwined. Like you wouldn't have Robo without Luca. If If Luca hadn't come with you to the future and you two just found this robot, they would have been like, huh, it's kind of sad, and then moved on with their lives. Whereas she's like, no, I need to bring this thing back, even though it's questioning, like, why are you helping me? It's like, because you're broken and I want to help you, because that's Luca. And so the way he worked in Luca's theme and made it this bigger, broader piece, I love it. It hits me in the feels every time I hear it. It's great. And it's pretty close to what the orchestral arrangements later did on that album too, just having that, making his theme just so big and grand, and I love it. He's just so full of hope and he's a delight. And like there's so many times I would go to the end of the time just to talk to him, just to get it going while I ran around the end of time. Even though I love the end of time theme too.
That's a really pretty one.
Which again, real far in the future. I almost went with it, but I decided no, I want Robo.
Yeah, can you get farther than the end of time?
But yeah, so yeah, I know you had said it was an interesting choice, some of you, this version of it. I'm curious why you think that way.
I mean, the main thing I was going to bring up, you actually did already bring up, which is like the way they interjected some other themes into it, which it seems like that's a popular thing to do with Robo, actually, because I've heard versions of his theme like mixed with Gato's, I think, too, and some other things. And you already kind of hinted at it, so I'm just going to come out and say it. The similarity between it and Never Gonna Give You Up.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's a mashup that happens a lot. But no, I like specifically how this version kind of interwove Luca's theme. It was just a really nice kind of give and take, and I think it supplemented well. And it did hit him in the feels.
Yeah.
Because it could get really repetitive otherwise, unless you bring some nuance.
It's exuberant, but like exuberant, just unchanging exuberance for 3-4 minutes is probably difficult to listen to.
Yeah, which is probably why too in the arrangement album, why they mixed it with crud, I'm forgetting the track, but it's not like its own track, it comes at the tail end of another one.
Yep.
And so, because yeah, just that going, you just go like, okay, cool, we got it. And you can only do so much with like the dynamics. Like if he had just did like, because I love how he starts it off with like a really basic one. You're like, oh, that's all we're getting. And then it comes crashing in with the full synthetic orchestra. And you're like, oh, okay. And it's like big and whatever. And then it gets a little quiet for like his quiet parts. And he could have done that. He could have just been like big and big, little, a little bit of both. Okay, done. But like, then he chose to get them all mixed up. Makes it much more interesting.
Right. It wasn't just like a quick change in dynamics to make the song like 1 or 2 minute song.
Yeah, and for me, yeah, it really was throwing in Luca's theme was what kind of, really made this version stand out for me. And like, yeah, it brings in all the chrono feels and it was great listen.
Yeah, it's a great song.
And it's neat too, tying it to Chrono Cross in that way too, which is also the future of this series game, whatever, right? And Luca's theme is also very integral. Like she's like the link in a weird way.
Yeah, no, for sure, yeah. And yeah, I think her theme's very prevalent throughout Cross's soundtrack too. So yeah, it's a nice connection musically as well.
Yeah, it gets me right around like the 1.5 minute mark, where because it does like Robo's theme and then it goes into a bit of Luca's theme and like it's a soft tenderness that kind of like joins the two characters, and then it goes like, okay, back to Robo. But then at 1:30, he does a great job of mixing the tracks together, like goes up to Robos and then dun, 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 and I'm just like they love each other so much.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then you have to leave him to go garden for several thousand years.
Yeah.
And then when you find him again.
And then if you have the PlayStation version and beyond, you get those little extra scenes as well at the end where I think was trying to connect it to Chrono Cross. I don't know if anyone remembers those with the Akira Toriyama animations. Mm-hmm. And there's like the little mini Robo, and I was like, I want that.
Yeah.
And then Mystery Baby that Luca finds is like, okay, you're mine now.
And just going back to the official like Square Enix Chrono Orchestral box set, the song they put Robo's theme with for that is The Day the World Revived, which is another like very sensible choice, right? Since Robo's theme is so jubilant. It's like, yay, the world is better.
Yeah, and he's literally reviving the world for like a portion of the game if you do that side quest.
Yep, exactly.
I always felt so bad leaving him behind to just like garden for centuries or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird thing too, because like again, the game does the hopscotch through time thing so well with that, and then you can literally go to the future, pick him up, and then bring him back to see his past self toiling away.
Yeah.
And he's just always there now. Like once you do that quest, he's just always there as a weird sort of piece of farm equipment robot doing his thing, and it's always just a fun little detail to fly over and be like, hi Robo, sorry, bye. I mean, you have a time machine, you could literally jump ahead like a few months at a time just to like so he doesn't get lonely. But you're like, nope, we'll just jump several thousand years in the future or 100 years into the future. That's when we'll see him only.
Oh.
But yeah, I like that whole Fiona Robo storyline too.
Yeah, it was hard to find a version of this song without getting rickrolled. As I was trying to look into other versions too.
That's fair.
Right.
There's a great local band here, the Runaway 4, we talked about in the pre-show, and whenever they have this set in there, they play it really well, and then every once in a while the lead singer will then just be like, never gonna give you up, and go for it. And it's like, well, yeah, it's there, you gotta. I also found a pretty cool synthy version. I was trying to see if anyone had done like a neat like lo-fi or synth version of it, but it just didn't have the dynamic, and just didn't quite hit as strongly as this does.
And I think the emotional punch is a good thing to focus on for this. I was just thinking about that because what we're kind of talking about here, like as far as thinking about our theme of, music from the future, is kind of with Robo, you are thinking about that connection and like the relationships between humans and robots or humans and technology. So it made sense to focus the way you did, I think.
Yeah, he represents, again, like a positive possibility for the future in this otherwise bleak landscape. But then, you meet his siblings who are all about efficiency and such. And I can't remember. I know I just went through that scene. Like, they're not of like we need to kill off humans because they're inefficient. Like, they didn't want to do like the robot future storyline that we get sometimes in sci-fi. They just thought he was flawed, right?
No, but they were perfectly okay with hurting him.
Yeah, I can't remember because I know that's
they don't attack
that's
the party. I think they don't attack the party. I'll have to look.
Only because they stand in the way.
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
Even though Robo tries to tell you, they're like, no, let me deal with this. And you're like,
Yeah.
Robo.
I'm like, no, we're not going to let this happen.
Yeah, and they're like, cool, throwing him in the garbage dump. And you're like, no. And now there's only 2 of us, dang it, to fight a party of 6. Yeah, that's another one of those random future things of like where the AI becomes too smart for us, so to speak, and decides we're the problem, which it's not wrong. I just couldn't remember if that was their thing too, but no, I think it was just they needed to serve humans the most efficiently, and they felt that he was flawed because he felt things and stuff or something like that. It's been a bit. But Audra, you just went through Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, I think that's actually pretty accurate.
Yeah,
they
so
thought they knew what was best for humanity, and having feelings and stuff, and having robot servants that felt things was not that.
Yeah, it was. They kept it to themselves. Still. Yeah. How did you? I know you. Just to quickly touch on Chrono Trigger as like one of those seminal pieces of time travel and a bit of future stuff. Like, how was it for you when you got to the future?
I thought it was really well done. It definitely fits into the bleak, and then you have a bit of hope with Robo, and it was a good time travel story, actually, which sometimes those are very tricky to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure there's all kinds of tears in the fabric if you really look at it much harder, but at least the future has Robo and Johnny. I almost was like, what about Johnny's theme or the racing theme? Because those are future as well, but
It's true.
Get that sweet Mode 7 going.
Right.
Speaking of future technology.
Yes.
And now I like that there's like a return to that in like retro style games of like trying to like recreate Mode 7 for the nostalgia factor.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, Robo's theme, it's great. This is a good version of it. The Blake Robinson Synthetic Orchestra, all 3, like they're very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not noble. Oh gosh. Like they're very direct homages to the soundtrack. Like he doesn't get too wild with them, but like he plays still within it, and it's still much more bombastic and a little more cinematic, I guess. But they're great if you want to listen to Chrono Trigger as intended, but just a little bit more. They're great albums, and they're like $10 each at this point.
Chrono Trigger Plus.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they're on Spotify, or you can even, if you have Amazon Music, you can just stream them for free as well, but you can just buy them.
Send me the link for those. I mean,
Sure.
we have links, so that is actually what we should be linking in the show notes, since it's the version
you'll
you
probably
picked,
have them in
so.
there. Yeah, he has his own webpage that you can get everything on anyway, so.
Beautiful. All right. So I think we've covered many different possibilities as far as future music. It's been a lot of fun. Any final thoughts about futuristic music before we do our housekeeping and bonus track?
The future is what you make of it.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good note to end on.
I mean, I think right now of all the possible futures we're leaning towards, it's going to be either NieR Automata or Deus Ex Human Revolution. We're kind of hitting, I feel like, in those 2 directions at the moment, not Mass Effect or, thankfully, not outright Chrono Trigger just yet, or Chrono Cross, but those are somewhere in there, I guess, with NieR Automata.
Well, I guess to go off what Audra said, to offer a little bit more hope, The future also hasn't happened yet, and you can always work toward a better future.
Absolutely.
I feel that's a pretty RPG message, honestly.
Yep. So there you go. That's it
Fate's
right
in your
there.
hands.
And it's up to 18-year-olds, 15-year-olds.
Oh, Greg, it's up to all of us.
You can be the old man in the group.
That's true.
The 18-year-olds in RPGs
Be the
are just...
Orin.
Once you hit 25, you're
Yep,
ancient.
you have to be the Orin.
Yeah.
But no, the 18-year-old RPG characters are just to get us used to the concepts. There's to educate us.
It's true. Greta Thunberg is the JRPG protagonist we all need right now.
All right. Well, as far as housekeeping, we have some interesting future episodes in the works. We're going to be covering the Lunar series in the near future,
Woo!
which is very
Yay.
exciting. And we're going to have a best of console episode with the Super Nintendo. And it looks like after that, we are going to have a Square Dance episode, which is music from strategy RPGs.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really funny because the title is very misleading.
Yep.
Is it like it's all going to be Square Dance remixes? Is it going to be country themed or oh great, okay, I got it.
All fire alarms.
How's it going to be? It's going to be hard on that SNES one. Whoever's on it to like not have everyone just pick all Chrono Trigger all the time.
It is going to be tough.
It's always tricky coming onto Rhythm Encounter and you're like, you want to be first with a selection before someone else is like, someone else already got Mass Effect or whatever. And you're like, someone else got Xenoblade. Dang it. You know, because there's so many things that first come to mind with things. And if you're not first.
It's almost always Square Enix music that goes first.
Yeah, I mean, they're a success story for a reason.
Yeah, that's true. So next, I just want to remind everyone, take a look at the show notes, information on the music we featured today and some of the tangential things we mentioned will be linked there for you to look at. And don't forget about our other great podcasts, Retro and Random. And don't forget to, like and subscribe and leave feedback on your preferred podcasting platform because that really helps us. And as far as getting in touch with us, the best way to get in touch with me is Discord. I am EP Fire there. Mario, what's a good way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm on the RPG Fan social media, so Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And for my own Twitter, it's EXPToonie.
Great. How about you, Audra?
Audra B at rpgfan.com.
Wonderful. And Greg?
I can be hit GDelme on Discord. I'm Greg Delmage pretty much everywhere else on social media. Google me, I'm there.
All right, wonderful. I think that pretty much takes care of housekeeping. So let's talk about that bonus track. Mario was talking about how he had lots of possibilities for this episode and was really excited for it. So I decided to let him have the bonus track. So what are we going to be listening to, Mario?
Yeah, for sure. So to end the episode, it's going to be a bop. It's X Not Fortress from Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. And yeah,
I was really hoping you were going to pick something from Mario. I was like, I wonder if he's going to find a way. And you did.
So you go, at least it's different from Square Enix. But yeah, no, this is, honestly, this is a really good song. It's a bop. It's very upbeat and very electronic beat boop bop beat, but like, it's nice. It's a different take on a sci-fi techie evil villain lair on the moon. So yeah, hope you enjoy it.
Perfect. Thanks. I'm excited to go listen. And thanks to you listeners, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
As a random aside, that text apparently came from the Canada Revenue Agency, unsolicited. They want my information. Should I reply yes, guys?
I'm going to say no.
Yeah. I'd probably say no, too.
But I could get a really good return, even though I haven't filed my taxes this year. They just seem to have already done it for me.
That doesn't sound suspect at all. All right.